Welcome. This is Calm English Listening for Adult Learners. You can relax and just listen. There is nothing you need to do right now. You don't need to understand every word. Just let the English come to you. Settle in wherever you are. Maybe you're driving. Maybe you're lying down with the lights low. Maybe you're making tea. Whatever you're doing, this is your time. Your quiet space for English. Tonight, my co-host Mark and I are going to talk about something that comes up in real life all the time. It comes up with friends, with family, at work, maybe even with a stranger at a dinner party. We're going to talk about how to disagree with someone, calmly, kindly, and in English. Not how to win an argument, not how to prove someone wrong. Just how to hold a different view and stay connected to the person in front of you. I'm Anna. And joining me, as always, is Mark.
Evening. Good to be here. It's one of those topics that sounds simple, and then you're in the middle of it, and it suddenly feels anything but simple.
Exactly. It sounds easy in theory. Just be respectful. But in the moment, when you feel strongly about something, the words don't always come easily, especially in a second language.
Right. And even in your first language, it can feel awkward. You don't want to seem rude. You don't want to cause tension. So sometimes people just go quiet, or they agree when they don't really agree.
Which is its own kind of problem.
It is. Because you walk away feeling a little unheard, a little invisible.
So tonight, we want to give you some real language. Phrases you can actually use. Words that help you say, I see the world slightly differently from you, without it turning into something uncomfortable. Mark, can I ask you something? When was the last time you had a conversation where you and the other person genuinely saw things differently, but it still felt okay?
Actually, not that long ago. A colleague and I were talking about how to run a meeting, whether it's better to have a strict agenda or to let it flow more naturally. And we really did not see it the same way.
And how did it go?
It went fine. Because at some point he said something like, I understand why you feel that way. And that small thing just changed the energy. I didn't need him to agree with me. I just needed to feel like he'd actually heard me.
I understand why you feel that way. That's such a useful phrase. Notice what it does. It doesn't say you're right. It doesn't say I agree. It just says, I hear you. Your feeling makes sense. That's enough. You can say that phrase quietly to yourself if you'd like. I understand why you feel that way. Let the rhythm of it settle in.
There's something interesting here, isn't there? People often think that disagreeing means competing. Like, one of us has to be right and one has to be wrong. But most conversations aren't really like that.
Most conversations are more like two people looking at the same situation from different windows. You're not seeing different things. You're seeing the same thing from different angles.
That's a nice way of putting it. And when you hold that idea, that both views can exist at the same time, it makes the whole conversation softer, less defensive.
And in English, there are phrases that carry exactly that spirit. Things like, I see your point, which means, I understand what you're saying. I can follow your thinking.
It doesn't mean you're surrendering. It just means you've listened.
Exactly. And you can follow it up with something like, I have a different perspective. Simple, direct, not aggressive, just honest.
Let's think about some real situations where this comes up, because I think it helps to hear actual examples, not just abstract advice.
Yes. Let's start with something small. A family situation. Imagine you're having dinner with your family, and someone, maybe an older relative, says that young people today don't work as hard as they used to.
Classic.
And maybe you feel differently. Maybe you think young people work incredibly hard, just in different ways. How do you respond without ruining the meal?
You could say, I see your point, and really mean it. Because maybe there is something true about what they're saying, and then, I'm not sure I see it the same way though. That though at the end is doing a lot of work. It's gentle. It says, I'm about to offer something different, but I'm not starting a fight.
I'm not sure I see it the same way. That's worth repeating. It's soft because of the I'm not sure. You're not saying you're wrong. You're leaving a little space, a little uncertainty, in the air. And that space is actually kind. It invites the other person to stay in the conversation. That's a phrase you might hear in real life quite often. I'm not sure I see it the same way. You can whisper it quietly if you'd like. Feel how gentle it sounds.
What about at work? That's often where disagreements are trickiest, because there's also status involved. You might be disagreeing with someone more senior than you.
Yes, that adds another layer. In that situation, you might want to soften even more, but still say what you think.
Something like, that makes sense. Start by acknowledging their view. Then, I wonder if we might also consider, or I had a slightly different idea. Would it be okay to share it?
Asking permission, would it be okay to share it, is very English in a way. It's not weakness, it's social intelligence. You're giving the other person a moment to prepare to receive something new.
And almost everyone says yes. Because when you ask like that, it doesn't feel threatening.
I want to try something. Mark, I'm going to give you a viewpoint and you respond. Like a little role play, just to show how this sounds in practice.
Go for it.
Okay. I think people should always be early. Being on time is already late.
That's interesting. I think punctuality really matters, I do. I see your point, but I have a different perspective on the idea that being on time means being late. For me, being exactly on time is respectful. It says, I value your time, and I also trust that you're ready.
I hadn't thought about it like that. That's actually a lovely way of looking at it.
See? And neither of us changed our minds. But the conversation felt easy. No one felt attacked.
I hadn't thought about it like that. This is one of my favorite phrases in English for this kind of conversation. Because it's honest. It shows real listening. You're not performing agreement. You're genuinely opening a door in your mind. I want to talk about something that learners sometimes find strange. The English habit of softening things. Making disagreement rounder, gentler, less sharp.
Yes. In some cultures, directness is a sign of respect. You say what you mean clearly and immediately. And that's completely valid, but English, particularly in social settings, tends toward indirectness, cushioning.
Words like maybe, perhaps. I wonder, I suppose, kind of, a little bit. These aren't weak words. They're social words. They're doing a job, making space for the other person.
So instead of you're wrong about that, you might say, I'm not sure I see it the same way. Or instead of that won't work, you might say, I wonder if there might be a challenge with that.
The message is the same, but the feeling in the room is different.
There's also something important about expressing uncertainty, not pretending you know everything, saying, I might be wrong about this, before you share your view.
Which is honest, actually. Because on most topics, most of the things people disagree about in everyday life, neither person really has the complete picture.
Right, and saying, I might be wrong, or I could be missing something here. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It tells the other person, I'm not trying to dominate this. I'm thinking alongside you.
There's a phrase I really love for moments when a conversation gets a little tense. When someone says something and you can feel the room shift slightly. The phrase is, we don't have to agree on everything. I love it because it just releases the pressure. Suddenly, there's nothing to win or lose. You're just two people who think differently, and that's completely fine.
It almost makes the disagreement smaller, more human. Less significant in the wrong ways, but more meaningful in the right ways. Try saying it quietly. We don't have to agree on everything. Notice how it feels when you say it. Generous, open, almost like an exhale.
And then there's, I can respect that. which is different from I agree. It means, I value you as a person. I value that you have thought about this. Even if I see it differently, I can hold space for your view.
That phrase is particularly useful in closer relationships, with a partner or a close friend. When you realize you've been talking about something, maybe a life decision, and you both feel strongly and neither of you is going to change your mind tonight. I can respect that. It's a kind way of closing the conversation without closing the relationship.
Let me mention something small that happened to us actually. Earlier today, Mark and I were preparing for this episode and I said something about the structure. And Mark thought I meant something different from what I actually meant.
Yes. I thought Anna was saying she wanted the episode to be shorter, but she was talking about the pace, the rhythm, not the length.
And I noticed something. Instead of saying, "No, that's not what I meant," Mark said, "Can you explain what you mean?"
It's just a much gentler way of saying I didn't understand you. It puts the focus on wanting to understand rather than on the confusion itself.
Can you explain what you mean? That's a really useful one, especially in a second language, because sometimes you might genuinely misunderstand. And this phrase makes it safe to say, I want to understand you better.
There's one more idea I want to bring in, because I think it might be the most important one. It's about the difference between arguing and being curious.
Tell me more.
So, when we argue, we're usually trying to convince. We already know what we think. We're just trying to get the other person to think it too. But when we're curious, we're actually interested. We want to understand where their view comes from.
And the questions you ask are completely different.
Right. Arguing questions sound like, but how can you think that? Or, don't you see that you're wrong? Curious questions sound like, what made you feel that way? Or, has something happened that changed your thinking on this?
And curious questions do something remarkable. They make the other person feel seen. They feel like you're interested in them as a person, not just in winning the point.
And often, people will actually open up. They'll say something they weren't planning to say, something real. And then the conversation goes somewhere unexpected and interesting.
Let me just reflect on all the phrases we've touched on tonight, because I want you to have them clearly in your mind before we close. I see your point. A way of acknowledging someone's thinking without agreeing. I understand why you feel that way. Validation without agreement, warm and human. I'm not sure I see it the same way. Gentle disagreement with room for both views. I have a different perspective. Direct and honest, but not aggressive. That's interesting. 2 words that buy you time and signal that you're genuinely engaged. I hadn't thought about it like that. Real listening, an open mind. We don't have to agree on everything. A release valve, kind and generous. I can respect that. Disagreement with dignity and tact? Can you explain what you mean? Curiosity, the gentlest possible response to confusion. It's okay to see things differently. Permission, for both of you. You might pause here if you'd like. You can say any of those phrases quietly to yourself, or just let them sit in your mind. You've been absorbing real, natural English this whole time. That's already enough.
Before we finish, I want to say something that I think matters. A lot of language learning focuses on being correct, getting the grammar right, choosing the right word.
And those things matter. Of course they do.
But tonight, we've been talking about something different. We've been talking about using language to take care of people, to stay connected, to keep a conversation warm, even when you see the world differently.
And that's a skill that goes beyond English. But English gives you these particular tools, this particular vocabulary of gentleness, that I think is worth having, worth practicing, worth knowing you have access to when you need it.
You don't need to be perfect at it. You just need to carry the spirit of it, the curiosity, the willingness to say, I hear you, even though I think differently. That's most of it, honestly.
Thank you for listening tonight. Wherever you are, in your car, at home, somewhere quiet. Thank you for spending this time with English, with us. You're doing something that takes patience and courage. Learning a language as an adult isn't always easy. But moments like this one, just listening, just being with the language, these moments matter. They add up. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.